I think we can get started. This is the L2 Interop Working Group. On today's call, we will be focused, I think, exclusively, we'll see how it goes, on chain-specific addresses and a few significant updates and revamps around that chunk of work that I'm really excited by, and I think will hope to, um, yeah, move this in a really positive direction. Chain-specific addresses, aka interoperable addresses, has been a topic that many of us have been discussing for quite a while now. And I think we're all excited to, yeah, kind of take this to the next level and kind of get things finalized. So, yeah, big shout out to everyone who has been working on this chunk of work for a long time, and shout out to some of the Wonderland team who is here today, who has jumped into this chunk of complex, messy work and has really been great in helping push it along and get it to what I think and hope is a much better state today. And you know, thanks to all of the other work that they were able to use as a foundation for this. So yeah, I guess without further words, we can just jump right into the discussion. And I'll hand it over to the Wonderland team to give a bit of an overview on things. And anyone else, of course, feel free to jump in with questions, raise your hand. Awesome.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Can I get a thumbs up if you're seeing my screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm Teddy from Wonderland. I've been leading the efforts on what was initially named cross-chain addresses. And I have sort of two documents to show you for this call. The first one is this one that was sort of a recommended reading, which Titi is going to share in the chat if you haven't seen it already. But we are not going to go over this one. It's just important that you know it exists and that you can refer back to it if you want to onboard yourself to this. And the other one is sort of my presentation of the subject. We have been working with ERC 7828, which has was proposed sometime late last year. And initially, we tried to sort of overhaul it. It has some history. It initially started as a text representation, and we tried to also define a binary one, then make it only binary. Then we went back to text. It's really a bunch of context that doesn't really matter. Other than the fact that we chose to split the standard. Basically, the standard defined this address at chain pound checksum format for chains, and defined a few ways to have better representations than raw addresses or raw chain IDs. And we also have the need for like the idea is for this to serve the needs of two groups of people. Those working with wallets and any other software that wants to display an address chain combo to a user. On a fundamental level, the scope for this is very simple. It's just, okay, people know about addresses, and we have to also strap a chain ID on top of that, so people know where that address actually lives. But then you got the needs of the wallets that I already mentioned, and the smart contracts, which is people working on the intents, cross-message passing, resource logs, verticals, where they need like a concise representation, because every byte counts. And also they need some other guarantees, such as knowing that a given address can have two possible representations, which for which a text format is not really optimal. So we decided to serve the needs of two different groups of people. We're going to define two different standards. The idea with ERC 7930 is to be the binary representation standard. I'm going to refresh this because I had some other examples of this. There we are. So we intend this one to be the binary one for use within smart contracts, and it defines basically a payload with a version, a chain type, and chain reference, chain type, chain reference, and address fields, which would map to address at a chain. Basically, version is an internal thing, so we can extend this standard in the future. Chain type vaguely matches to a KIP namespace, and chain reference is the KIP reference. So what chain within that ecosystem we're talking about. And address is the address specific to that chain, which we all already know. So this standard is mostly concerned with the binary payload, but in order to bridge the gap between this standard and 7828 and keeping them both compatible, this also defines a very basic text representation, which could also be useful for when you don't actually have the means to, I don't know, resolve an ENS name or perform some other like more advanced logic, or you are just a developer trying to troubleshoot stuff. This has a text representation as well. And this text representation is actually what lets you plug into 7828 and keep the two standards convertible between each other. So the target audience for 7828 is anything that interacts with humans and which could benefit from having more readable and memorable names. And the gist of it is that we define every name of this format from 7930 is compatible with this one. So you can still use a raw address if you want. But it also defines that you can put hierarchical names within the address or the chain field. And we actually strapped some semantics on top of this hierarchy, so you can have, the idea is that the top level domain defines how are you actually supposed to resolve that name into something that's not ambiguous and that you can follow and you can actually dereference back into a chain ID or into an address. The idea with this is basically to create an indirection level app. So currently we have a centralized registry of chain names, like mapping from chain names to chain IDs. And instead of maintaining that, in the future, we would maintain a list, a list of protocols to name chains and to name addresses on those chains, which would be hopefully a much shorter list. And the way you know which one to use is by this top level domain. So in this example, we have alice.eth at coolchain.short. Coolchain.short has the TLD short, which means we should use the short list, which is what we currently use in, for example, ERC 3770. And alice.eth has a .eth top level domain, which means it should be resolved via regular ENS. It's worth noting that while this standard allows for the use of ENS, it's not entirely coupled to it. So the idea is that you could have some other TLD which maps to using some other naming registry. If in the future somebody wants to use something other than DNS, and also in the case that's crucial for the case of naming chains, since it would be very cool to use a decentralized list of chains as proposed in ERC 775, but that is currently not possible because 775 is actually pretty far from reaching production. So in this other example that I have, this is more made up because we can't use ERC 775 yet. But the idea would be that you can say use rollup.l2.eth as the chain part, and then the .eth would mean that you use ERC 775 to resolve that to an actual chain ID. And this also showcases that you could use you could still use addresses like raw addresses or raw chain IDs like they would show, like you would do with 7930. So you can use these for things that are not actually named, and you can represent things without going through a naming registry. This is a work in progress. We are there are a few things that we're trying to define, especially the reverse resolutions of addresses on other chains is something that is currently being implemented by ENS, and we have some comments and some needs from them, and it would also be very cool to see ERC 775 moving forward, so we can decentralize the naming of chains as well. And this centralized list of naming resolvers, also called the name registry, is something that we have not created yet, and for now we're debating the possibility of using the same repo as the chain list. And this is the part where I ask you for stuff, and it's where we're wanting to get these ERCs like finalized as soon as possible. Our goal would be for them to be in a final call status in the next like 2 weeks from now. So we will really appreciate your feedback on any of this. And in particular, I would like to ask you to use the Eat Magicians forums, the threads. We have links for the two of them here, and they are also in the other document, and Titi probably shared them in the chat already. And the idea is that for every sort of minor change that we have to the ERCs, we use different PRs. So for example, like making 7828 be a text representation of 7930 addresses was its own PR, and any feedback that you have that you make on those PRs will be hard to follow on if they are not properly archived. So we would like to have all the feedback happen on the forum, so we don't have to then track another like huge list of different PRs that you have to read to get up to speed, and also like we would like for people to onboard themselves to this without having to, I don't know, go through a Telegram group or something. So it's easier on everybody. So yeah, we're doing interoperable analysis, and we want your help with this. So I haven't gone through the chat. Is there any questions that you guys have on this?
Yes, one question. Probably you've covered this, or maybe you've covered this. I've joined late. But why do we need the checksum in the machine representation of addresses?
No, we don't actually. The checksum is only for meant for displaying it on displaying the text representation to humans. The machine address does not have a checksum. It assumes that however you transmit that information has the capability of knowing if you got the same message in as out. Like if you were to share it in a QR code, for example, the QR code has its own redundancy. If you were to send it over TCP, TCP has everything that TCP has, and the checksum is only relevant in context where it's possible that a user had a typo or has something different on the the naming schemes can get very sophisticated in the future. So you would want to, perhaps you could have text representations which are different for the same actual address. And the way the checksum is defined is that it only hashes over the chain and address part. It does not concern itself with, for example, which naming resolver you're using. So you could have like the same address be represented in text in two ways, but the checksum would be the same. So you would be prompted to look into it. Like the idea is for it also to not make the representations as opaque.
Okay, yeah, this makes sense. Though there's one thing that I'm concerned about, like as a user, if I'm typing a name as a user, I want something simple, like just alphanumerics. But if I have to type at the end some checksum, which is like a hash or something like that, that would be very hard for me, especially even if though I'm like kind of IT person.
You will not type the checksum not as a lay person and not as the nerdest of developers. The UX that we envision is that you use, like, you type the name, and from that name, the wallet, at least with ENS, which is what I researched so far, the wallet can then figure out where on which chains there is an address available for that name, and then it can list them. So you pick from the select, and then you get the checksum. The wallet computes the checksum for you. So if you are somewhere if you, for example, saw the address in a pamphlet, you could type and say, yeah, that's the same checksum. I did everything okay, and then like send a donation or whatever.
Okay, I see. Thank you. So the checksum just to I just read it and verify in another place. Yeah.
Yeah. I see some hands up. Frangio, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I had a comment specifically on this. I think the team did a really good job taking the initial proposal to now splitting into two, machine readable and then the human readable that leverages that. This is very solid, well thought out. I think we should push to get this done as soon as possible. Support the 2-week timeline. Awesome job. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
My question is if you can give a short update or comment on the integration with chain agnostics proposals. Some of this is being proposed as a cape. Is that right? Can you comment on that?
Yes, I'm actually really glad that you asked. The idea is that these standards support Ethereum addresses, but they are not limited to that. Like they can support both chains within the Ethereum ecosystem, which are not EVM, and I don't know, have larger addresses such as Aztec or Starknet. And they can also support things like are completely outside of the Ethereum ecosystem, mostly because there are some like we were inspired for that for other tooling which already supports it, and it's based off Ethereum, such as ENS with ENS IP9. So in order, we want this to be extensible to as many chains, L1s, L2s, alt L1s as possible. So for that, we need to have a place where we agree on the text representations, like on how to map the text representations of addresses to a binary payload, because that's for some cases that's pretty easy, and for some other cases there are some alternatives. In the case of Ethereum, you could argue over if you want to use EIP55 canonization of capitalization or similar things, and I don't know, Bitcoin has several address types. So the idea is that we defined a KIPE profile, which is KIPE 350, which is currently in draft and it's receiving feedback. We didn't link from the presentation, but the other document actually includes it. But yeah, so there's KIPE 350, which defines a profile of what a chain should define as are their text representations, their binary representations, and how to map between the two. And then the KIPE namespaces for every chain are completed later. So if you're not familiar with how KIPE, how CASA works, it's sort of a meta specification. So you can have a specification of how does, for example, KIPE 10 is a specification of how an address looks. And then
I don't think we can hear you.
Teddy, I think we lost you.
fine.
TT, are you?
Oh, hey.
We'll see if Teddy comes back in a second. While we wait, any other questions, feedback from, I see there's a few other L2 teams, wallet teams here in the chat. There
I'm
we
sorry,
go.
can you hear me?
Yep, you're back now.
Oh, okay.
We lost you for a
Um,
minute.
yeah, some how much did you lose that? Was the Skype part clear?
I think we lost about the past 30 to 60 seconds.
Oh, okay. So yeah, the idea is for that types are meta specifications of what should address, like what should chains specify to comply with. In the case of Kype 350, it is the mapping from text to binary and from binary to text. In the case of 7930. In the context of 7930. So what we did is we defined the Kype 350, and then we defined the namespaces for both Ethereum and Solana. The Solana one was not for any particular reason other than supporting some other chain to sort of to test that we could, and Solana was particularly easy on how they define their addresses and their chain IDs. But yeah, both of these things are as open PRs, so you can chime in on any feedback that you have.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, any other questions you guys have, or anything I missed from the chat?
Yeah, sure. I have a question. So you have this like the text format kind of looks like an email address, which is nice in some ways, but also like raises the question of like how do you avoid collisions with, you know, TLD is defined by ICANN and potential confusion there.
You mean confusion between addresses and email addresses?
Yeah.
We didn't think of that, to be honest, and
Okay.
we imagined that they would appear in very different contexts. One thing off the top of my head, which could be fine, which would be to define an MX record or something akin to that where you can make the email address map to the actual blockchain address. So you can actually fix that by making them the same, but that's just speculation on my part. No, we didn't envision they could collide, and the idea is to not an actual mitigation to that, which is not really yeah, an actual mitigation to that is the fact that we would have a centralized list of these name resolvers, and the idea would be to not use TLDs that ICANN also uses, so that can get it out of the way. And in the case of naming registries, so far it has been in their best interest to not collide with ICANN. So I don't know, ICANN does not provide a .eth address, and the .eth TLD for ENS was chosen because there isn't one in ICANN. So I don't think that's going, because of the TLDs, I don't think it's going to be a big issue.
Yeah. One thing I will say immediately is like the idea that they're not going to appear in the same context, I don't think is probably true. I think people do already, you know, want to send crypto to an email address. And if you have that, the case where you have a you know, a 2 line on a transaction that can take either an email address or one of these names, it could totally be the exact same context. As far as not colliding with ICANN, like yeah, .eth probably at this point ICANN would not probably endorse a .eth TLD at this point because they are I'm guessing aware of the fact that it's used by so many people in this space. I guess basically I would be concerned with other kinds of TLDs that might appear and that future collisions could occur.
Yes, we will have to sort of, the EF would have to approve of that collision by adding it into the name registry, basically.
Well, I'm saying it's like, you know, the members of the community of this community decide to use some new TLD, you know, .chain, and then ICANN later approves a .chain TLD owned by some corporation.
I was just going to jump in really quick, Teddy. I think the email collision topic, I think, is a good one and is something that we touched on a long time ago, actually, when we were first sort of debating usage of the @ sign versus colon versus other sort of syntax. And so I think I do think it's something that is still a concern. I think, and Teddy, like, correct me if I'm, I guess, misunderstanding or if you disagree, but I think the way that I think that we're thinking about this is that the way that we've set things up now allows us to have some flexibility. We don't need to answer this question in the immediate term around the specific syntax, and maybe we do in the very near future decide to move away from @ to avoid this email collision issue. But I don't know, not to say that we shouldn't discuss it right now, but I'm wondering if it's something that we should maybe have a separate sort of venue to discuss more specifics around syntax and format.
Yeah, this is the sort of thing that would be a good fit for the forum, because there's also the argument that using a colon would mean having ambiguities with type 10, which would be more frequent. But the forum is probably the best place to go in depth into that.
Yeah, makes sense to me. There's a couple of questions from Frangio in the chat as well.
Yeah, just the one about the timeline, I think, is the only really important one. This thing about email collisions, do we need to decide this in the next 2 weeks, essentially?
Yes, because the ERC, like the ERCs do not define the like the naming registries we're going to use, and they do not define the how future chains are going to be serialized, which that allows us to move the standard faster, but it does define the grammar of what names look like. So this is one of the items that should be resolved within 2 weeks, but I am like, I have the time to discuss it, and I'm confident we can figure it out.
Okay, anyone else has any questions that they would like us to address right now? Else, we can move this conversation to the forum, and we will be addressing all the feedback during these 2 weeks, as Teddy mentioned. So let us know. I hope this was very helpful for you to get contacts on both standards, and we really appreciate you taking the time and providing feedback on it.
Thank you so much, Teddy and Titi, for walking us through and answering a bunch of questions. This was great. Any other questions, feedback right now? Otherwise, we can move it to the forum, like Titi mentioned. Cool. If not, then we can end the call there. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you in the forum.